What are they hiding in Dudleytown?
What? While I was living in Connecticut in 1961, I visited the town. And from the moment I arrived, I felt a strong urge to leave.
They say that the doom of Dudleytown was laid down even before the foundations of the first dwelling. Doom.
I think for this reason.
Interesting.
That they avoid certain areas. Whereas we're like, oh, well, we build mills here because we use the flowing water.
Right,
but they're like, we don't do that. Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 3, Episode 4. See you at the 19th hole. It's weird, it's cursed, it's cordoned off from the rest of the world. It's Dudleytown, Connecticut. I'm Mike Duber.
And I remain John Fitzpatrick.
Well, all right. John Fitzpatrick. Dudleytown. Okay, so I'm coming in ice cold, as I love to do, because I just want to react, and I don't always need to research and be deep on anything. So,
last week we had an obviously highly cathartic, deep, long, in-depth episode. This is not that. So hopefully this will.
We needed a break.
This will be a lot more fun. But we do have a question.
Okay.
And it's a question that we must answer.
Okay.
What are they hiding in Dudleytown?
What?
They.
Oh, do we know who they are?
Yes, maybe. We'll go talk about it.
Okay.
Right. So
well,
no,
what and the they.
No less than paranormal enthusiast and Ghostbuster Dan Aykroyd has pronounced Dudleytown, Connecticut to be the most haunted place on Earth in that well-known journal of high strangeness, Playboy magazine.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, Aykroyd also mistakenly placed the village in Massachusetts, but we will
we can
ignore that. We'll forgive that.
Yeah, when you're that rich, you can make those mistakes.
He was probably drinking his tequila or whatever it is he has in the crystal skulls.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, he bottles.
Is that his brand or something?
Yeah, he bottles.
Really?
Maybe it's a vodka.
A lot of stars are doing
I think it's a
these
vodka.
days.
I think it's a vodka he puts in the crystals.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of the stars are doing that, having liquor brands or whatever.
Okay. So,
I don't know.
Dudleytown, Connecticut is a forbidden place now. The long abandoned hamlet is now private property and hidden deep within the nature preserve named Dark Entry Forest, which does not sound the least bit suspicious at all, does it?
It doesn't.
No.
It's not really its name, is it?
Yes, it is.
Is it really?
Yeah, the Dark
like on the maps?
Entry Forest, yes.
Oh, wow.
On the maps.
All right.
The owners do not grant requests to visit the ruins. And if they catch sight or scent of trespassers sneaking into the Dark Entry Forest, they do not hesitate to call the police to arrest them.
Wow.
Shades of Hell House, except no hillbilly.
No dog. All right.
It was not always this way.
Okay.
And before we get into the history of Dudleytown, let's hear from paranormal researcher and author Robert Ellis Cahill about his visit to Dudleytown.
While I was living in Connecticut in 1961, I visited the town, and from the moment I arrived, I felt a strong urge to leave. I've never had such an eerie sensation, like someone or something was watching my every move from the nearby deep, dark forest. I wasn't alone, of course. 2 friends, Mike Beltrami and Doug Campbell, were with me. Although Doug kidded a lot about being in a ghost town, it was obvious to me that he was uneasy, and Mike was noticeably unnerved. Mike hadn't really wanted to come in the first place. "I don't like it here," he kept saying. "It gives me the willies."
The willies.
The willies. But Doug wanted to poke around in some of the old cellar holes. It took us 20 minutes to find the town, walking down the old trail leading from Cornwall. But then we saw the partial remains of stone buildings nearly hidden by growth. the once active streets now covered with bushes and shrubs, and then the many cellar holes. The foundations of many houses, a church, store, and a school were found still standing, and Doug collected a few old bottles. Although the sun's rays were slicing through the branches overhead, the quivering dark shadows playing over the ruins had me constantly peeking over my shoulder, expecting I don't know what. It was afternoon in June, yet I was still chilled. I, like Mike, didn't like Dudleytown and suggested we leave. Doug reluctantly agreed, and we made our way back through the thicket to the car. By the time we reached the paved road, we were all sweating profusely. "Why was it so cold in Dudleytown?" Mike asked me. I didn't know. All I knew at the time was that it was once a thriving place with many prominent citizens. As we drove back to Hartford, I was determined to spend some time in the library to find out all I could about Dudleytown.
Despite the name, Dudleytown was never a town of its own. It has always been a neighborhood of Cornwall, Connecticut, which was founded in 1740, and proudly advertises itself as the greenest town in Connecticut. Cornwall lays claim to being the birthplace of Revolutionary War hero Ethan Allen.
Okay.
Birthplace, because he was from, I think he was Vermonter, one of the, during the Revolution.
During the Revolution,
yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, and Cornwall, at the population of 1,567, well, it's a slightly smaller than my alma mater's enrollment of 1,741. I mean, it's a small town.
Wow, that's pretty small.
It's a small town.
Yeah.
The town has an extensive website describing the many charms of visiting, including several nearby state parks that offer opportunities for hiking, cycling, fishing, boating. Those are just the summer activities there. They offer a selection of fine restaurants, shops, antiques, local artists. I mean, it sounds like a charming place. The site promotes their covered bridge, which was one of the last constructed in the state. And there's even a link to an equally extensive site for the Cornwall Historical Society, which has pages on their exhibitions, ongoing research, and of course, the now very amicable ties to local indigenous peoples.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
But what you won't find on the main websites for the town or the Historical Society is any mention of Dudleytown. Although if you poke around long enough, you will find a blog entry. Does anyone still read those? For the Cornwall Historical Society titled The Truth About Dudleytown.
Every fall, as we get closer to Halloween, the Cornwall Historical Society receives an increased number of requests to visit Dudleytown. The answer is always no. Here's why. First of all, the Society does not have the right to grant permission. The area of Cornwall, popularly known as Dudleytown, is private property. It does not belong to the town, and it certainly does not belong to the Historical Society. Secondly, the people who live in Dudleytown are completely fed up with thrill-seeking, would-be ghost hunters. Imagine if someone wrote that your home was haunted, even though it wasn't, and you suddenly had total strangers wandering around your yard, peering in through your windows, setting fires, and leaving litter, invading your privacy on a regular basis. You wouldn't like it very much, and neither does anyone in Cornwall. Be forewarned that if you should, unfortunately, decide that your curiosity is more important than the privacy and property rights of Cornwall residents, you will be arrested for trespassing. If you would like to visit the forested ruins of old buildings, or if you would like to visit a stunningly beautiful forest, Mohawk State Forest will satisfy your interests. Cunningham Tower is full of eerie ambiance, if that's what you're looking for.
There's also a few hundred words of copy debunking absolutely everything I'm about to relate to you. making them even worse paranormal killjoys than I can be.
And that's saying something, because he's a killjoy.
These people are not having any of this paranormal nonsense. So much so it seems suspicious. Hence our question, what are they trying to hide in Dudleytown?
What indeed? Conspiracy theory number 1.
And there's one clear untruth in the Historical Society's account. No one lives in Dudleytown.
Yeah.
There are indeed modern residents near Dudleytown,
Okay.
but not in Dudleytown. So any Halloween visitors to the site would not be peering into the living rooms of any residents.
I noticed that.
Yeah,
myself.
I just saw that. There's an unfortunate
I see that
typo. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I don't know.
I was going to hold it together, but now I have leave to laugh.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all. Yeah. It's
Don't go
okay.
peeing into my living room, you damn ghost hunter.
All right.
What's even funny is you wrote it.
I wrote it,
and then you read your own.
And I'm like, hold it together, John. Just get through it. Get through it.
You read your own typo.
And I was like, was it peering or peeking?
Was it peeking? Peering? Yeah.
So
I was thinking peering or peeking?
It's okay.
Or peeping?
It's on brand for this episode. Okay. Let me calm this because we're going to try to sound eerie again for a bit.
Yeah. All right. Bring it back in. Here we go.
They say that the doom of Dudleytown was laid down even before the foundations of the first dwelling. Doom. 3, possibly 4 brothers. Abijah, Barzillai, Abiel, and Gideon Dudley.
Whoa.
Good
for you, man.
Those names are great.
That's awesome.
I know. I read them several times.
Great job.
I also heard them on several other, recordings.
Oh, so you had a clue.
Podcast. Yes.
I love it. Possibly 4.
Okay.
Possibly named Abijah, but we're not sure.
Well, you'll see what I mean in a minute. Okay. Abijah, Barzillai, Abiel, and Gideon Dudley.
Good Lord.
Left Old England for New England in 1630.
Well, that explains the names.
They were of a family that was once distinguished, but fallen out of favor with the crown and hoped for better overseas. You see, their great-grandfather was Edmund Dudley, a minister to King Henry VII and president of the King's Council. He was convicted of treason for stealing from the royal treasury and consequently executed in 1510.
Ooh.
Another relative, Thomas Dudley, was the dour Puritan governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony for 4 years, beginning in 1634. It was rumored their branch of the family was cursed, and maybe they hoped such a stain wouldn't cross an ocean and find them in the deep woods of Connecticut.
They say that curses are personal. People carry curses.
The Dudley brothers began buying land outside Cornwall in 1747. At first, the Dudley curse seemed held at bay, and little Dudleytown gathered other settlers, although never many. The town first subsisted on hunting and farming. Iron deposits were discovered nearby in Salisbury, Connecticut, and Dudleytown began logging to provide timber and therefore fuel for the smelting industry. But as time passed, each of the 3 or 4 brothers died either mysteriously, tragically, or both. Abiel ended up the local pauper and remanded to a legal guardian. He suffered dementia and lingered in this terrible state until the rare old age of 90.
Wow.
Barzillai died earlier, but he was attacked, killed, and horribly mutilated by unknown assailants.
Could it be the curse?
Well, they blamed the Indians, of course.
Oh, of course.
But it could have been anything. I mean, anyone. Gideon moved away and was never seen or heard of again.
Whoa.
And if you're wondering about the fourth brother, Abijah, I am too. No one seems to account for him.
Oh, so he just falls off
He
the
just
record?
drops right out of the record.
Wow.
Most accounts talk about 3 brothers, but I found a couple that mentioned 4, and it's like, well, what happened to this fourth guy?
And they just don't have nothing on them. Oh,
It's-
wow. Okay.
It's unknown, Mike.
Oh, I can see why you chose this story.
Unknown. Tragedy, it will seem, was attracted to all the inhabitants of Dudleytown, and many wonder why the Dudley family curse might transfer to the other families. There is the typical speculation that the Dudley brothers ran afoul of the local Mohawk tribe, which might also account for Barzillai's murder, and the land was cursed by a Mohawk shaman.
Man.
But this is, as I said, purest speculation.
Sure.
In 1759, Abiel's house was purchased by Nathaniel Carter, and his family lived there for 4 years, apparently uneventfully.
No curse.
They moved to Binghamton, New York around 1763, and it's when they left Dudleytown that misfortune piled onto the family. In 1764, one of Nathaniel's children died of a mysterious illness. Later, in October that year, Nathaniel's wife and 3 daughters were attacked by natives. This would have been during the French and Indian War.
Okay.
His wife was killed on the spot, and the 3 young children were kidnapped and transported back to Canada.
Wow, with the tribe, huh?
The house was torched. Trying to get home to see his family, Nathaniel was ambushed by more native raiders and brutally killed.
Yikes.
The good news, if you can call it that, was that 2 of the Carter daughters were recovered from the natives. But they were so traumatized by the ordeal that they were physically sickly and weak and considered somewhat mad. The third was never accounted for. And don't think matters were any better for Nathaniel's relatives back in Dudleytown. His brother Adoniram Carter's family caught a strange disease that killed every member of the family in 1774, but never touched any other member of the town. General Herman Swift was an advisor to General George Washington in the Revolution. Mrs. Swift was struck dead at home in Dudleytown by a bolt of lightning in 1804.
Yikes.
And when word reached General Swift, he went mad. Gershom Hollister, a Dudleytown resident, was found brutally murdered in the home of William Tanner on the outskirts of town. Tanner was the only possible suspect, but he adamantly denied he committed the crime. Yet he could offer no plausible alternative explanation. Turner also seemed insane and insisted he was plagued by demons and ghosts. He also claimed Hollister had been attacked and killed by some awesome unknown monster. It's claimed he remained insane until he finally died at the impossible age of 104.
Man, long-lived,
Isn't
cursed,
that interesting?
And monsters and bad luck following them around. I wonder what cryptids are in the area.
See, that's
Unknown
the
monster.
thing. That's the thing. We can talk about that toward the end. Let me get through the
That's very
weirdness.
good. Yeah.
This is high strangeness.
This is really strange, yeah.
Cryptids do not enter the story on stage so much as sort of
No, they
hint.
lurk.
They lurk on the edges. Yes.
Interesting. Well,
Okay.
that's sort of the native curses are very, very bad. Very bad. Very bad.
These
It's like Skinwalker Ranch.
These spectral visitors continued to visit Dudleytown, and by the mid-1800s, many of the families had packed up and left. No new families came to replace them. One of these Dudleytowners was Mary Cheney, who married Horace Greeley to leave. Greeley was well known in his day, maybe not so much now, and ran for president against Ulysses S. Grant. And even if you've never heard of him, his famous phrase,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
"Go west, young man," may still have some familiarity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a deep cut.
Mary died a few days before the election, and Horace, suffering greatly from these grave disappointments, because obviously he didn't win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or I'm forgetting something.
Died less than a month later, even before the Electoral College could meet.
Wow.
And as an aside, if you're a political junkie who wants to know what happens to the electoral votes in this case, the answer is that Greeley's 66 votes went to other candidates, but of course did not tip against Grant.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting question.
By 1892, only one family was left in Dudleytown: John Brophy, an Irish immigrant and the head of the household, publicly insisted that ghosts, demons, or wild animals would not force him to move. First,
Not yet.
his flock of sheep died. Then his wife died suddenly of some unknown cause. Familiar story, but it was possibly consumption. A few weeks after the funeral, his 2 children simply disappeared into the forest and were never found.
My God.
Not long after that, Brophy's house burned to the ground.
Yeah, just to add insult to injury.
John Brophy, haggard, wild-eyed, stumbled into the nearby settlement of Cornwall. He was ranting about ghosts, green spirits, and strange animals with cloven hooves that tried to capture him. Some accounts say he then vanished into the woods himself.
Wow. So there, he drops off the record too, right?
In 1900, don't ruin a good story, Mike.
Just like I can't help it.
In 1900, Dr. William Clark, a professor of surgery and a teacher at Columbia College of Physicians and Surgery, yes, that Columbia, arrived in Cornwall to purchase some 1,000 acres of undeveloped land. His reputation was as one of the best cancer specialists in New York City. Clark quickly fell in love with country life. If you want to break into the Green Acres theme, this would be a good time to do it.
Nope, don't want to ruin a good story. Heaven forfend.
Clark quickly fell in love with country life and began construction of a summer vacation home in the vicinity of Old Dudleytown.
Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land stretching out so far and wide. Honey, I love you, but give me that countryside. There you go.
Very good.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me intercede there in the story. No, this is interesting. Go for it.
Dr. Clark and his wife, Harriet, frequently spent weekends and summers at the property until 1918. Then, one summer weekend, Dr. Clark was called away for an emergency in New York. In his absence of some 36 hours, his wife went insane.
Wow, without his steady hand, she just went loony. Good Lord.
Friends and neighbors told Dr. Clark she ran hysterically from the house.
Wow.
Screaming that ghosts and weird animal-like creatures from the forest were harassing her. She's said to have committed suicide.
Wow, there is a distinct lack of record taking in this area.
Despite this tragedy, Dr. Clark continued to maintain and visit the house. He even remarried, and together with his new wife and several friends from Cornwall, they formed the Dark Entry Forest Association in 1924.
That's a good idea.
To ensure that the land surrounding Dudleytown would, quote, remain forever wild.
And forever dangerous.
In 1926, there were now 41 members of the Dark Entry Forest Association, and it is descendants of this group that still live in the area, and the association still owns most of the land the village once stood upon. The closest residents, remember, no one lives in Dudleytown today, are in a cluster of homes on Bald Mountain Road. These people insist nothing supernatural is happening on the land. But then again, they would say that, wouldn't they?
Yes.
The stories of haunting seem to have begun as early as 1938, when the story was first published in the book They Found a Way. Author Fessenden Blanchard, there's a name. You love the names.
The
of
names. I mean, like
this is a great.
It's like
yes. Isn't this a great story?
Wow.
You were like, what is this?
This is
like
unbelievable.
Dudleytown,
Connecticut.
Author
knew?
Fessenden Blanchard included the town in 1960s Ghost Towns of New England.
Oh, all right.
Austin Stevens continued to grow the legend in 1971's Mysterious New England. In 1989, supernatural investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren name-checked the town in their book, Ghost Hunters.
Wow.
And since then, Dudleytown's popularity is such that TV shows, websites, newspaper Halloween stories, paranormal books, and of course, podcasts about high strangeness have featured the town.
Oh, them.
The 1999 release of the Blair Witch Project movie raised the profile of going for a walk in a haunted woods, and it encouraged a noticeable uptick in trespassers in Dark Entry Forest. And that's when the locals began to get very serious about keeping outsiders from disrupting their peace. So, what's the truth behind the stories of Dudleytown? Well, I can debunk some of it.
Okay.
And clearly the blog entry at the Historical Society goes into greater detail.
Okay.
The Dudley brothers were real. There were at least 3 of them. Abijah is the one that is not certain. They were real, but they were not from Edmund Dudley's family line.
Okay.
So it's not likely. I mean, they carried a family curse from England. If they did, it was certainly not Edmund's curse. Also, there's plenty of reason for families to drift away from the village in the second half of the 1800s. The geographic location is just quite simply bad.
Okay. What does that mean?
I'll explain.
Okay.
It's surrounded by hills. It's in a depression, basically.
Okay.
That cast long, dark shadows across the valley. Hence, Dark Entry Forest.
Okay. Yep.
So it's cold even in the summer. It's just not, and the light is bad for farming.
Always in the shade.
Yes. The winters are harsh.
Yep.
Particularly back in olden days. The soil is rocky and prone to what can generously be called flooding. Really, the water tends to pool into shallow swamps because it's a depression.
You know where I'm going with that, because I observe that, water and rock and...
Yeah, it just seeps into the earth, creating a pervasive dampness.
Yeah, so it's swampy, cold, in the shallows. It's got fungus and mold and all kinds of stuff.
Real estate is all about location. This is a bad location.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, why were they there in the first place? And no wonder the Indians, maybe then they didn't have to curse it. Maybe it was just like, it's cursed anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. But that said, actually a surprising number of the stories have core truths to them.
Well, there's always a little kernel in there.
Yeah.
What do we got?
The Cornwall Historical Society blog entry debunks some of this, but not necessarily satisfactory. They point out that Abiel Dudley didn't go insane so much as senile.
Okay.
And back in the day when there wasn't a lot of elder care, and he did live to a ripe old age, apparently that much is also true. They also note the Carter family tragedy took place, but it took place far away from Dudleytown. It has nothing to do with Dudleytown whatsoever.
Well, unless somebody's going to make the argument like, well, you've got the dust of Dudleytown on your shoes and it carried it. Yeah. That type of thing.
The Carter family voluntarily moved to the frontier, and that even though Binghamton, New York, Binghamton, New York sounds like, how frontier can that be? It was the frontier during the French and Indian War.
Yeah.
And attacks by the French and natives were extremely common.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, again, I'm going to bring up one of my favorite movies of all time. Go watch Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah. Enjoy.
But they bring up the fact that the farmers want to go home to protect their families from the Indian race.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Mary Cheney Greeley went insane far away from Dudleytown. And she did not commit suicide. But she
Okay,
did
so
go
that was
insane.
just wrong. But,
Yeah. She was not at home in Dudleytown when she went insane. You can cast all the stories in a less sinister light and chalk it all up to coincidence. I mean, you can, but there's still an odd sort of nexus here. If the population of Dudleytown was always small, this does seem like a high percentage of tragedy and insanity circling around it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then, you can also take the tack, maybe there was plenty of tragedy to go around during the time period in question. I mean, we're talking about the colonial era, the Revolutionary War, the 1800s when, it was still a little iffy, modern medicine wasn't modern medicine yet.
Yep.
There's certainly the perspective that you can look at any small town in detail and find that if people live there, they will also love, succeed, and also fail, argue, have accidents, grow old, ill, and die. Consider this when we return to Ellicott City, Maryland. We've brought that up before. It's a lot of living in in this very small area.
Yep.
Sure, you can.
And we've touched upon this before.
Yeah, people are messy.
People are very messy. But then, well, I don't know. I'll let you keep going. I think we'll have time for comments.
We'll have plenty of time for comments. Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Certainly the fine folks at the Dark Entry Forest Association, some of whom are the ones who live on Bald Mountain Road, have done themselves no favors with the names.
Yeah.
The names scream high strangeness.
Yeah.
What kind of dark entry exists in that forest?
You just took this in a really weird direction. Oh, no.
And what happens if I spend a night on Bald Mountain? That's a Fantasia reference?
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's very good.
If they really wanted to dissuade sightseers, they would have named it Yellow Daffodil Forest and Pussycat Road.
That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
In any event,
to ensure no one ever goes there.
this is another case where we really, really don't recommend legend tripping.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen indicates these folks are deadly serious about keeping trespassers out. Maybe not as deadly as the hillbilly at Hell House, but they're serious about keeping trespassers out, and they will call the police, and no one I know needs that house.
Yeah, you're going to receive a dark awakening if you try for a dark entry over there. Yikes.
But something that does bother me, and it bothered many of the authors I consulted, are the recurring themes in the stories over the decades that seem like a lot of insanity to occur in such a small area. Statistics like that might be enough in these modern times to have the health department out looking for radon or chemical contamination.
Or some kind of fungal infection, because of the low-lying water, like ergot, like they used to say at the Salem witch, the witch madness was like from ergot or something.
And we have to note, as
the wheat fungus,
there are persistent mentions of strange but indistinct beasts in the woods that torment the insane. Is this somehow related to Barzillai's mysterious mutilation and death? But we'll never have definitive answers so long as the Dark Entry Forest Association keeps the place for itself. So for now, all we can do is continue to ask, what are they hiding in Dudleytown?
Don't go away. We'll be right back. That's where it ends.
That's where it ends. That's 32 minutes. That's probably my shortest script ever.
You nailed it.
But you know what? It's so much fun. So
question.
Sure, you got questions.
I got questions. Okay. So, what is a
Barzillai?
It sounds delicious. Sounds like cheese bread from Fogo de Chao. I'd love another serving of Barzillai myself. When did Dan Aykroyd go there? What was his connection to this place? Do we know anything about it?
Well, Other than the fact that he
Is he from Connecticut?
No, he's Canadian.
Oh, okay.
He's Canadian, I'm
All
pretty
right,
sure.
but I know he's into, I mean, his
Oh, yeah.
family was deep into the paranormal and
Yes.
studying and everything else. So,
Yes.
okay, but so if no one's allowed in there, how are we getting, how do we have, I mean, the Warrens went there. What did they do while they were there? Any word about that? Anything?
I didn't
they
read
did
their
to
book.
dig
I
up?
don't give the Warrens money, so I didn't
I
buy
know
their
you
book.
don't like
I didn't
them.
buy
I
their
don't
book.
either. I'm just wondering.
And I don't know if I don't know if they just mention it because they were notorious for attaching their names to other names. I mean,
Okay.
Hence the infamous Amityville Horror story for them.
Yeah. So remind me, they went there and were run off. Remind me again what they did there. They put it in a book.
They mentioned it in one of their books. Yeah,
Okay.
the Ghost Hunters. Yeah, they name checked the town.
It must be. Yeah. I'm curious enough now to go to a library.
Yeah, I could go to a library
And sit
imagine.
for 20 minutes and read what they've got on it.
Find it. Yeah, that's the book, and I'm sure we can find it. I don't know if they were diligent enough to put in an index, but maybe you'll look out. Yeah.
Did you run across any other accounts of going in there? Because I'm sure people sneak in there and or have.
So what? Yes, over the years they have, and it wasn't always so tight. So that was one of the reasons why I picked the opening bit was to give you a sense of what's there. That is accurate. Robert Ellis Cahill's account. So the town is dilapidated. It's a ghost town. It's overgrown. And actually, this is something good because I think it's an image we kind of want to imagine. Also, when we talk about Mystery Hill, America's Stonehenge, about what does remain after a colonial occupation or inhabitation. So that at one point this land was cleared and a town was built in the space, and the town had homes. It had some small stores. It was not, and because it was not a separate village, it was part of Cornwall. It was its own neighborhood. It was not extensive, but it was compact. And what's left now are the dilapidated remains. In many cases, it's merely the cellars or basements, so stone-lined pits, which was something that came up with Hell House. Also, if you think about it, was
this was
foundational
a proper
pits.
building. I'm envisioning
These were too.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
but I mean proper. But I mean like that was built.
These weren't just log cabins. These were buildings.
I know that.
Yeah.
But they like stone buildings that have proper foundations,
Right.
and then the stone is the only thing that's left behind.
And there'd be fences, and there'd be outbuildings, and most of these would have had an outhouse type thing at some point, especially into the 1800s. So those things, those remains are still there, and then the forest has crept back and built up grown over all of this stuff. So it is mysterious and eerie when you see that encroachment of nature over the skeleton, as it were, of the town,
of the stone footprints.
and that's what gives people the eerie sense when they do encounter this. And it's not just here. This happens all over New England, where a colonial settlement is being reclaimed by nature.
So
this is not an uncommon occurrence up there. And they used the stonework as foundations. They used it for fences, for walls to keep in or delineate property, much like they did back in England. So these remains are endemic.
Well, this reminds me of nearby here, the Daniels area. There are a lot of buildings that were a part of that little mill town area right along the Patapsco.
Yeah, I was going to say
there are lots of ruins that people visited over the years, not unlike the Hell House, the seminary. The difference though is you've mentioned, and I've not run across it. You probably have it. The paranormal activity that is purportedly takes place along the Patapsco.
Yeah.
The Daniels area, Ellicott City is also right on the Patapsco, the confluence of rivers, the stonework, the low-lying area. Oddly enough, and I can't remember where I ran across this, where it was written, because I would probably go find it and try and use it when we talk about this stuff. But the indigenous do not like regularly build their inhabitant. They don't inhabit places like at river confluences, nor close to rivers. Mm-hmm. I think for this reason.
Interesting.
That they avoid certain areas, whereas we're like, oh, well, we build mills here because we use the flowing water. Right, but they're like, we don't do that. We stay away from this. And I don't want to throw that out there flippantly.
Yeah,
I need to go back and find that.
I can think of another reason why they would try to leave that uninhabited is that particularly the confluence of rivers, I would think, is plenty of water, so there's plenty of game.
Yeah, and they want to leave it undisturbed so they can come back and fish it and hunt it. Yeah,
but there are some other. I mean, it really wouldn't shock me. Clearly, it's going to depend on the local nation's belief system, but mm-hmm. I would expect there to also be some kind of religious significances involved as well. Yeah, with
potentially
when they're focused on nature to that degree.
It could be animism.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing about animism is that all things have a spirit, and it could be that some are good and some are bad.
Yeah. Well,
and
there's
some
definitely
of them may
that.
live at the confluence of rivers. I would be that's enough for me to go digging to see. But it's also like, if you remember from Missing 411, the Aaron Hedges case, he went into the crazies.
Yeah.
Now, the crazies were cursed by the tribe that was pushed out of that area, but they said, the winds will blow and the white man will go crazy, which is how the crazies got their name. But even before the white man, they said that those mountains, they didn't go there. Strange things happened, weird things happened to people, drove them crazy as well. So they avoid these places, and a lot of places we just wander in like, well, we'll take it.
Sure.
We need the water. But this is a cursed town.
Very different.
This is the
systems.
Definition of different belief systems. Yeah, but this is a cursed town, right? There are other ones,
I think that's the
Point
funny
Pleasant,
thing.
Right? Is in the Mothman, right?
Yeah,
there are other ones.
I mean, I don't want to talk about that now. I'd rather wait until we get to that.
There are other ones.
There's yes. I will make a qualified yes. There is a curse associated with Point Pleasant. Mm-hmm. The provenance of the curse is somewhat suspect, but it's there. Yeah. I mean, there's a story, and it dates back to 1776. Right. That's we can talk about that when we get there. I'll be happy to talk about that when we get there.
The other triangles very nearby. We're in Connecticut. We've got the Bennington triangles right there.
Yeah.
Which is in Massachusetts.
The other place, a confluence of rivers, is going to come up when we talk about Braddock's Road, because they were trying to get to Fort Duquesne, which is Pittsburgh, which is where the Monongahela and the other one, God, it's escaping me, but they become the Ohio, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember river names.
Yeah, but there's a confluence of rivers there. I mean, it's a very distinct point, and then the two rivers become a third and drains out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we also had this in when we talked about the Susquehanna and the number of cryptids that are positioned along the river itself. It's not just that they're near the river, like they're on the river. Yeah. So what about flowing water? I mean, that's something that's commonly attributed to...
Well, this water pools. It becomes a swamp.
Yeah, it's a swamp.
It just sits there. It doesn't even become a full... It's almost like it's trying to become a lake, but can't.
Yeah, like there's something about that holds the energy and doesn't allow it to... I don't know. I don't know. All I'm saying is the coincidence of all these things is interesting. And when you take... if you zoom in on it, you go, it's a coincidence, and that didn't really happen. They did go insane, but, and there's all kinds of, but there's still so much correlated to the one place.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with, when we were talking to either Luke or John Long, we also mentioned another cursed place. But anyway, when you zoom out and you say, oh, well, that place has a curse. A lot of strange shit happens there, and that place, and that place, and that place, and that place. And then you've got 18 different places across the nation. All have a predominance of weird things happening. Is it a coincidence at that point? But also, there's virtually no explanation, right?
So I think Okay.
It's just weird.
I think the correlation you could draw here is that I want to go back to Devil's Den with Bill and the Gettysburg. I think that's what you're thinking of. We talked to somebody and we said, "Oh, there's the cursed place. There's a whole story about Devil's Den," and then I brought up the fact that places with the devil in its name often have weird things associated with it. Dark Entry Forest may not say devil on it, but it's another one of those, like, why would you name this way? And they say, well, it's because the shadows are there, and they've got a perfectly rational explanation, but it's still
right.
Dark Entry Forest doesn't sound suspicious at all.
These are often, these are, when you a lot of these places have, when you go back to, this is how the indigenous referred to it, and the names carry forward because of the overlap.
I don't think that's the case here.
I mean in the devil places.
Yes,
the devil places,
the devil.
not Dudley. Dudley.
Because even, you're right. Even in the cases where they named it after some localized spirit, that became, well, clearly that's the devil.
Right.
When the settlers arrived and
they just put their word on it.
Right. But it often was a localized spiritual being that may have been leaning malevolent, and that's why devil got associated with it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just get Spirit Lake, I think, is a common name for when they say this is our sacred spot and it's the lake that gives us life. Well, you get Spirit Lake rather than Devil Lake.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it also depends on the context, right, of how they're using it. But I think, it may pick up that moniker based on, there's a negative spirit there, and this is we would not bury our dead there. We're not going to put them on the scaffolds and let the buzzards pick their bones clean here because it's very bad. Well, that's very interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah,
that it was so strange. But they have a lot of mention of the lurking monsters, the ghosts.
So for a small state,
gracious,
for a small state,
there
are a surprising number of cryptids in Connecticut. And I don't really want to go into them now because I'm sure we'll have an excuse to get to them later.
Yeah,
but these things do not match the descriptions of the Connecticut cryptids, but there are a couple of like whole books on just the cryptids in Connecticut. It's not like you've got New England cryptids and it's one chapter of here's the cryptid in Connecticut. There are a number of them. And some of them
as there are in PA.
Yeah, some of them do trace back to native lore, and some of them are more modern. I think there's I want to say there's a big cat cryptid in Connecticut, but
interesting.
I might be misremembering.
Yeah.
But we'll deal with them separately. But these are, I would say, the Dudleytown suggested cryptids here are different fundamentally from the other legends.
They're more of what do you mean? How do you mean?
The description is different. You're not getting like a Bigfoot creature here. You're getting something else that is clearly more wild. In the way that they're vaguely described, but clearly associated with the forest and clearly associated with madness and violence. And chasing. I mean, these stories tie them to a murder. They tie them to some insane people who run in and out of places, and they're claiming to be chased. That's a connection to violence.
And that rings a bell. And maybe you can help me place it. There is a story about, and I want to say it revolves around an indigenous man who they murdered his wife and his family, but then he claimed that there was like a Sasquatch creature, like a a hairy hominid that had encouraged him
that's
to
not
do
the way
it.
these are described. Just to,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I just to distinguish them again.
Yeah. I don't want to draw in anything other than yeah, it's strange. But I'm looking at the map here.
But I do want to distinguish them as being different from the modern cryptids of Bigfoot and
interesting,
lake
though.
monsters and big cats and the other things that roam
But
around. These are
just
these
because
are
they're
somehow
not
different.
described.
Right.
Like the difference is they're not.
You know
they're
what?
more lurking. They're more spiritual or elemental. Almost.
You know what? Yes, elemental is a good word. And the other thing I would say that they connect to in more of a modern New England context is almost the kinds of things that lurk in a Lovecraft story.
Yeah.
Especially their connection to the madness.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I don't know that that there is a connection there, but they definitely fit into that tradition in that sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this topographic map right now since I had it up, and it is quite a cut valley that runs through where Cornwall is, where this river runs through. It looks, and where they have Dudleytown placed. I'll have to look into that closer. I find that interesting.
Yeah, I did look at the map for Dark Entry Forest to see what was going on there. Yeah. And I'm not sure it was entirely clear. I was trying to make it clear, but the folks who lived on Bald Mountain Road really are they are the Dark Entry Forest Association. They are descended from the people who.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's somebody new there, but but many of them are. So they've been living. I mean, which is also sort of another trope where
it's kind of like hill people.
Yeah, it is definitely a horror movie trope, more like a Rosemary's Baby satanic cult trope type thing. But it's like, why are these people still living there? Isn't that creepy too? It's like, right. and I first encountered this story because somebody else was intrigued by the fact that they're so adamant about keeping people out. They were like, well, I just want to make fun of them for being that way, and the fact that they've got this horribly debunking story like there's absolutely
nothing to see here,
and we're going to tell you why there's nothing to see.
Yeah, we don't want you peeing up our peeing on our windows.
So I was like, peeing on the windows. Yeah, that was funny. That I decided to pick up that thread as well. I mean, I am poking them a little bit.
Okay,
like if you really wanted to keep people away, you really shouldn't be telling me stay away.
Right.
Get out of here.
Right.
Nothing to see. Here are 1,000 reasons
you're asking for it.
Yeah, you're asking for it. And I mean that tongue in cheek. It's a fun story. But there's I'm sure it's interesting to go for a hike and see Dudleytown, but it's probably not as exciting as you think.
Well, no, it probably isn't. But it also makes it interesting just knowing all the weirdness that has apparently happened there.
Well,
but this is not. I mean, yes, you can
debunked.
Zoom in on this and you can pick apart each story and come up with something, to explain it. But when you zoom out,
it's still weird.
The nation is covered with these stories, and there are hundreds, probably thousands that we haven't even heard of yet.
Which,
like, when we pick a state, zoom in, go to some town in like Bozeman, Montana, and go, are there any haunted towns or cursed places? Well, yeah, we got 3 of them over the hill right there.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
but that's
for various reasons. Like even some of those western towns they said are like there was so much violence in Deadwood.
Yeah.
Now, that one's pretty easy to explain, but at the same time, it's like it was like just everywhere, like brutal behavior.
Yeah.
Is it cursed? I don't know. Who knows? But still strange. And then with the indigenous, like, hey, yeah, we absolutely cursed that. When you took it from us, we put an honest to goodness curse on it. That makes perfect sense to me, given their worldviews and how they went about things. And you gotta wonder.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know quite what
I want that on me.
I don't
dangerous.
know a lot about the history of the indigenous in Connecticut. I'm sure it is similar to some of the stories I'm more familiar with, which is, the Pilgrims arrived. The Pilgrims needed the indigenous tribe to survive. The indigenous tribe helped them out. Then the Pilgrims decided, hey, you're taking up too much of our space, so
time for you to go.
We're gonna have a bloody war. And there's
massacre you.
Yeah, there's a there's a war in the 1670s. I want to make sure I get that time right. It's called the King Philip's War. We're going to revisit that at some point when we talk about the Bridgewater, because that's really the central area of it.
Yeah.
But King Philip's War per capita, by deaths, by percentage of deaths on both sides, was probably the bloodiest conflict in North America.
Wow.
That involved at least the white men. But and King Philip's War is, when people say, "Hey, whatever happened to those nice Native Americans that helped the Pilgrims out?" It was King Philip's War. They wiped them out from Massachusetts, from Rhode Island, and probably into Connecticut, and I know up towards New Hampshire and Maine as well. And they cleared the land. Yeah. There are some natives that have moved back east a bit, but they got forced. That was the first time they forcibly got pushed west. And the other thing I do know for sure in Connecticut, the very touristy, beautiful seaside town of Mystic, Connecticut, is the first site of an English massacre of a native tribe. There was a tribe that was living there, and they had a fortification, and it got burned out. And we will probably revisit Mystic, because every few years the center of Mystic burns down. Oh, and they point back at the first massacre as the source of the curse. And which is another interesting sort of confluence, that is the case, that they have a central fire in town every few decades that clears out the town in the same way. But that's like the first English settler massacre of a native tribe.
That's so common. I mean, a lot of these.
So I don't know what happened here, but it's not a good history. It's not a good history.
I'd still be very curious to know why Dan Aykroyd didn't break out on his radar. There must be something. Maybe they were asked to come in, and and aside, conspiracy theories aside, it could be just the case that whole family that is responsible for it in that association is like, look, we're not going to talk about it, but if you really got in their head, it would be like, there's some strange crap happens there, and nobody should go in there, and you're going to get hurt, and then they'll blame us, and then it'll just be a big thing. And so, I mean, and from a legal standpoint, I mean, keeping people off of property because of like you said, we saw that at Hell House, where they had to clear away ruins because people were going there and creating mischief and creating dangerous situations for themselves. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Another aside, to sort of pick up threads that have been dropped in the story.
Yeah.
The Carter family out in the wilds of New York. That really was actually a very common experience in that area at that time, because, like I said, that was in the midst of the French and Indian War, and the French-allied natives would come down, mainly Abenaki, and they would raid the frontier town and homesteads, and they would frequently take captives back with them to Canada. And they wouldn't take just the women. I mean, this story highlighted the women, but they would actually take captives in battle, and they would actually bring the men back. And some, it sounds odd to us today. In many cases, these people did become functioning members of the native nation. And accepted their ways and took up the lifestyle there. Now that sounds really rustic to us, and if you watch The Last of the Mohicans, you'll see a Huron town that's all done up with wigwams and whatnot. But in actuality, the tribes that lived in close association with the French, the ones who were coming down and doing the raiding, lived a very hybrid lifestyle between their traditional ways and French ways. They would have towns with four-sided houses type things. They would have a church because they were often Christianized and baptized as Catholic. So it's actually not as and they would sometimes dress at home much more modern rather than what we might think with buckskins and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
They would dress up in their war gear, their traditional war gear, to go raiding because they knew that would create a savage impression.
Yeah.
But
They
they
sort of had that self-reflection of themselves.
Right.
They knew.
Right. It was, it's a very interesting time.
Mm-hmm.
And the captivities, like I said, it was not unusual that people would stay with the tribe and become naturalized to the tribe. And it was also not uncommon that they would get ransomed back or they would leave. And in fact, one of the things I didn't go into in the narrative here in the script is that Carter's son was also taken, because, it's far more sensational to just talk about the daughters. His son was taken, lived among the Canadian tribe for a while, and then came back, and I think he served as a Supreme Court justice in New York State after the Revolution. So he came back, became educated, and became a professional and a judge. Very fluid time, fluid time. And these stories are interesting for that too. And that it's like, they're wild. They're roller coaster stories that somebody could live that kind of life.
Yeah.
Where they're out on the frontier eking out existence. Then they're suddenly captured in the midst of a bloody war.
Yeah.
Live among a foreign nation with very different ways, and then come back and suddenly rise up to the heights of society.
Yeah.
So I just, this is, but these stories allow us to reflect on that history and get into that, which again, a theme of mine.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, no, the how do you, apprehend history, and,
right. It's not what you think.
Through stories, and it's often not as simple as you think, and it's, it's not cowboys and Indians, which is the trope of, they're all bad and all. I mean, there's just a complete menagerie of.
It's funny you mention that too, because the other popular cultural artifact of this experience is that sometimes when the captives came back to English colonial society, they would write a narrative. And there's a whole genre of this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And it used to be
memoirs.
Called Indian captivity narrative. Now it's Native American captivity narrative. But they would sell like hotcakes because people were really interested in these experiences. And it sets up many of the tropes about frontier life that, even though it's the colonial era and it's New York and it's Canada, they still continue on in Western stories as the frontier pushes west of the Appalachians. Some of those same tropes pop up again and in some cases it's because there are a lot of similarities in practice among the different native nations, but in many cases it's because people just fall into the literary trope when they write up the story.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to see the origin of some of these things.
Yeah, so let me just one final question, and we can wrap this one up. I want to give a little bit of 2 shout outs for where we're going next.
Sure.
Is it the case that, like, what you brought forward, well, that's all there is to find? These are the stories, these are the main threads, and that's about it? Or did you find any more depth there, or is it so locked down that it's like these are just sketchy stories and you got them, there you are, that's it? Is there any more there?
There are 2 ways to look at that. Okay. One way is, if you really want to fully debunk these stories, you can certainly go, and I think I do have it in the show notes, to the Cornwall Historical Society's blog entry, and they go through it all.
Okay.
But the point we've made that, yes, if you examine each individual story down to its last detail, you can find a rational explanation is fine. But then when you layer them together and pull them back out, so it's hard to say, and there are gaps. There are gaps in some of the stories where it's like, what happened to that guy?
People fall off,
right?
But that's not uncommon.
That's not uncommon.
Like, there's just and
that's part of the
history
debunking.
of that. We don't know where he went, especially if they're on the you're on the edge of society.
Yeah, and that's part of the debunking.
Walk 20
though.
feet that way, you're in the wild, and you could get eaten by a bear,
Right.
and they'll never see you, and no one ever knows.
Yeah, but they'll just say it's part of the debunking. Yeah, the person disappeared
well, I'm not
from
going to go
history.
debunk. I'm just looking for because And what brought it
so
on
it depends
our
on the
radar?
story.
What brought this on our radar? That's the other thing I can't remember.
It appears in some of my books, and
Does it?
I ran into it in a couple of places online.
That's right. You
you
texted me and said, "This is weird as shit.
Yeah,
you got to see this."
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. All I'm saying is,
like I said, there was one podcaster that I follow that related the story and said, who are these people that are trying to? Why are they such killjoys? Why are they not fun at all?
Why aren't they monopolizing on it?
Yeah,
and, and doing tours of it or whatever.
Right.
Or letting ghost hunters in there.
There are other ways to do this, and yes, I understand.
This kind of sounds like the museum up in how do you treat history? You can ignore it or. Yeah. Take the high road.
Right. You could take, I think they're trying to take a high road, and their goal, the stated goal of the Dark Entry Forest Association is to keep it wild. One way to do that.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. One way to do that would be to keep everybody out and away. Another way would be to, okay, it's Halloween time. We're going to sponsor these guided trips that we are going to tightly control. We'll hire all our own drivers, all our own tour guides. We'll know how many vehicles are going through there at what time, or to satisfy that curiosity. And over time, it probably goes away.
Maybe,
especially if they take the Killjoy version of events,
I guess.
But
I don't know.
There are ways around this, and the other thing that has been seen in multiple places, but clearly Point Pleasant is a model, is if you highlight this, you can make a lot as a town and hold a festival.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money and bring a lot of people and a lot of revenue through in a very short period of time. And make
a lot of people. Not everybody wants that.
I know, but there are lots of small towns where their local paranormal festival, whether it's aliens, cryptids, or ghosts,
but not everybody. Like there are probably still places out there where the majority of people agree. Like nobody wants everybody driving through. But who knows?
I don't have a problem with the idea that they don't want randos going through this forest, especially if it is private land. I get it, but there are ways to control it. There are ways to handle it a little better.
Yeah, than just straight up law enforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I know not everybody's in it for the money. I mean, it sounds to
not
me
everybody
like
wants the resources, or they have enough.
Like the people on Bald Mountain Road might be a little beyond that. If you know what I mean, Lovey.
I do, John. I think it speaks to the noses being in the air.
My wife is calling me. I'm not sure why. We'll deal with that in a minute.
Okay. We're about to wrap up. Okay. We'll do it quickly. Thanks for joining us for this. I knew this one threw me for a loop. I was expecting something I think a little different, but that's
was it fun?
Totally cool. That was totally fun. No, it makes it. I actually am interested to follow up a little bit, maybe hear some other podcasters and how they dealt with it. But going forward, a couple of things, like since we dropped the note about, places with devil in the name, we were contacted by an individual that wanted to share some stories, and that person had mentioned out in Western Maryland, Devil's Backbone Park.
Oh yeah.
So I do have the intention of getting back because obviously a lot has happened to me that has kept me from being able to focus completely, but we're getting back on track. We're going to look into a place potentially in that contact with a devil name in the title of an area nearby, just south of Hagerstown. And then we're going to be looking at southern New Hampshire in a place called Mystery Hill.
America's Stonehenge.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to dig in on that one.
You've actually been there.
I have. I've been there. I've been in the chambers. I stood next to I didn't stand next to the sacrificial table that's there. Yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff. And there's indigenous there, but thankfully, I don't have anything on the radar that speaks to a massacre, so that's awesome.
Oh, thank God.
We don't have to talk about that. Just that they inhabited a place, and then so did some other people. And so we'll dig into that, but there's some real mysteries there, John. That
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
There's the mystery there. You can zoom in there, but then there's we're going to look at the context around it. So cool. All right, well, we'll wrap this up. Anything you wanted to drop with?
Nope, I'm done.
All good. All right. Hey, gang. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next week.
Bye.